Okay, so I have wet with clean water around the cottages and across the sky. I'm going to use a little bit of cerulean blue. I'm still using the big brush because I don't need detail at the moment. And I'm just dragging it across the sky. Not out to the edges of where I put the water, so it's got room to move and diffuse out. And I don't want all that sky in there, so I'm going to lift some color out and just put a little cloud in by just lifting out with just a damp brush. And then with a piece of tissue.
I'm sorry, Susan, have you gone across the trees? I just can't see from here.
Okay, right, so we've got the sky in. I have lifted out with a thirsty brush and clean, lifted out so that it's more broken. And I'm going to leave that to dry. So in the meantime, I'm going to do the lake here. We'll put some wax along this shoreline, which will preserve that white so that we've still got this icy feel. And I'm just wetting the paper, the page. Wet right up to the shoreline. I used a ruler and drew a straight shoreline because my eyes go wonky. And using the same brush, I had to pick up the tiniest amount of that cerulean blue and just brush it across right up to the shoreline, but now the wax is showing through. So in straight lines, just blend them out. So you can't really see where it goes from a bit darker to a bit lighter, or when you can see that it does, but not when. So once we've allowed this to dry, mostly, it hasn't got to be bone dry, but mostly, if you can put your finger on it without leaving a mark, you're okay, because we're not going to paint into it. I'm going to do the red houses, and for that I'm going to use my trusty rigger and a red oxide transparent for me, but whatever one you wish, Indian red, light red. So first I'm going to decide where my light is coming from, where the sun's hitting it. So my sun, I think I'll have it from the right, so it's going to come in this way. So this facade of the house is going to be light, and these two are going to be a bit darker.
I think you did it the other way. Oh.
So I'm just painting this facade in clean water, making sure it's got a sheen on it, but it's not too runny, no puddles. Then with the light red on the brush, I'm just dropping some colour in there and letting it move about a bit. We've got the sun there, will be lightening that up terrifically. I'm going to do this one here, this second house. This one's in the shade, so we can afford to be a little bit more red. So again, paint the house, a little bit more pigment this time. Just touch the paper and it will take the pigment and take it to where you've put the water. I haven't got a straight roof line there because that's where the snow is pillowed on it. So you can see it goes up and down, and it should be on the same as this one, but it's not quite so obvious. Right. And I'm going to paint this side of the house as well. You'll probably get it come bleeding through, which it did immediately. That's fine. It doesn't matter. It's the same color. Actually, that's come through quite nicely. Again, just drop a little bit of the color. Then I'm going to find a little bit of a dark blue or Payne's grey and just drop that in that corner there and that corner there, just to give it a little bit of shadow. And on the chimney. Then we need to leave it to dry for a little while. So we're going to now be really delicate, and we're going to make this white on these roofs look like snow, we hope. And we're going to pick up, now I'm using Payne's grey, or you can use a dark blue of any sort, or a dark blue mixed with, or a blue mixed with red, cobalt blue and light red mixed together. That will make a dark colour, but you've got to have it more to the blue side. And I'm going to pick out where the shadows on the snow. So I'm going to have a little bit of one there. It's only really, really subtle. And a little bit of one there. Can you see where I'm going? And a little bit of one here. And a bit more here. It's not a strong colour, it's just a hint of shadow underneath a thick layer of snow. So I put one under there, and a couple under there, and a couple and some down here, and under that curved bit there. And it just gives the impression of there being a little bit of shadow. My colour on this is cobalt blue and light red mixed. So, but I mixed it before it sits in my palette. It's just to give it, it's not a straight line, just curve it round a bit, make it look as if it's got a few, it's pillowy, I think is the word. Then we're going to do a little tiny bit with a very, very weak mixture of that blue on the top. And that's too heavy. So I'm just putting a little mark. It's only a small stroke, and just blending it out just on the top of that roof there, to give you the idea that snow and melting, and the same with this one here. Just a tiny, very light bit of dark blue. I've come down about halfway down the house and then back across the top of the roof. And then you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that's snow on there. Well, it's not, it's a blue brush stroke. But it looks like snow. Oh, Kay went. I'm going to do exactly the same with that dark blue along the shoreline here. So I've got a line coming down here which says that's the edge of a bank. So I'm going to do a wavy line or some waves, keeping the bottom of it flat against the water, but just making some marks just to, because snow isn't always perfectly sitting there in its whiteness. It's got particularly dark bits in it, and I'm just blurring those edges off with a bit of extra water. Do a bit there. I'm just working my way around along that shoreline, using a bit of extra water, clean brush, and just damp, just to soften the edges and make it sweep up, because we want to give it the idea that it's going uphill. So I'm just sweeping or blending it in using upward motion, because we're going up that hill there. I'm going to do exactly the same this side, only when we go to sweep it up, we're going to sweep it that way, the opposite way. So have a bit there. I find it quite difficulty painting from right to left. So I'm going to go this way. So remember to keep it flat against the waterline. And just make the same sort of marks, just going the other way. Then clean brush, damp brush, and just blend some of those out so they're not a straight line. And we're going to deal with this line here, which again is the dark blue, very, very light, wishy-washy mix of it. And just follow the line down and just brush it down, brush the water down, the paint down. And it just turns the white page into, oh yeah, that's snow. And I'm going to do a bit more at the top there. So start at the top, follow it down a bit, and then just pull some down. And we've got more. And this bit here, I've got a pencil line still, but I shall rub that out and there'll be no paint there, but the eye will tell you that it's, you know, that's a bank and the snow goes all the way down. And I'm going to do exactly the same for this one. So bit of blue at the top. We've also put some wax on here, so that is going to help anyway. So I'm just putting a little bit of very light paint at the top and then just pulling it down, pulling it through the wax. And this bit here I don't like because it's, so I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to soften my edges there. So it's a clean, almost dry brush now, and just blend it away. I didn't like the heaviness there. So we've got the snow in mostly. So I'm going to I'm going to mix up 3 greens for these 3 trees. The first one here is a very light mix of a dark green, cascade green, and some yellow ochre. I'm just going to put some more yellow ochre in with it. It's sort of a browny green, and we're only going to use a light mix of that. The second one will be, I shall add a little bit more of the dark green to this, and then the first tree, which is over on the right, will be this dark green only. So I'm going to do this small tree here with this light mix. So start with the top of the tree and then just crisscross down. So I'm doing sweeps. So I'll go that way a few times, then that way, then that way. Just going to put down the bottom, I'm just going to drop in a tiny bit of the dark green underneath those branches there, just to give the shadow. I'm going to take the colour from that tree and add a bit of more of the dark green, so it goes a little bit more greeny. So next tree, so he's taller. Pull down I've got far too much water on there. Pull down the top, start at the top, just little bits each side. And so I do little strokes there, getting wider and wider each time. I need a bit more paint to go down the bottom here. And then a little bit of dark green just to give it a bit of shadow down the bottom there. Particularly shadow on the opposite side to where your sun's coming from. I'm just darkening that side of both of those trees. Sun's coming, as you remember, from me, coming from my right, so the left of my trees is going to be darker. And then finally, tree number 3 or 1, depending on which way you're working. So I'm going to use the dark green that I have. I'm going to make him bigger So he's up there. Start off with a line down, little dots each side, getting bigger. Then strokes that get bigger and bigger. Just imagine that center line. More paint. More paint. And that comes the other side of the house. And that's the tree. I'm going to just soften the center of this tree, because at the moment you can see each line, each stroke. So I'm just going to soften the center, leaving the strokes out the side there, but softening down in the middle there. Don't need to do it on that one so much, but I did it on that one. And more this side of this tree, this one is very dark. Make sure you go around the roof, because that's a bit of negative paint in there, so that the white of the roof shows up against the tree. It picks it out for you. Now, the last thing to do is we're going to do a bit of spatter. So I'm going to get some of my dark green. I've got enough water, and then filling up my rigger with pigment so that it's fairly full. Get your bit of tissue, cover up your houses, and just spatter over the top of the tree. And then I'm just going to go a little bit to the left, because then that says the wind is blowing. And uncover the houses. And the other thing that I noticed I haven't done is I haven't painted this chimney here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of red on the chimney and on that one too. And the final bit, for those who are into it, is my little bird. I think it's more of a bird of prey than Terry, so it's going to be an Eddie. Above one of the trees. So definitely with birds of prey, they don't have a bend in their wings. They're just two flat bits with a V in the middle. So here's an eagle, Eddie, obviously. I'm just fiddling now. I'm using a bit of Payne's grey just to darken and put some shadow in on both of those trees there. And that, I think, is